everyone. Thank you for joining this session of the Impact Series. My name is Sharon Kugler, and I'm the University Chaplain at Yale, and I'm in my 14th year. And you're going to be treated to something quite special. You're going to be eavesdropping on a monthly conversation that I host with my direct report chaplains called Chaplains Chat. And so I'm going to invite each of the chaplains on this call to introduce themselves and just talk briefly about what they do. I'll start with you, Ian.
I'm Ian Oliver. I'm pastor at Maytal Chapel at the University Church, and I'm also senior associate chaplain for Protestant Life. So I work with the many different Christian groups on campus. I also teach at the Divinity School.
Thank you. Maytal?
I am Maytal Saltiel. I use she, her, hers, and I'm an associate chaplain in the chaplain's office. I work primarily with undergraduate students from diverse religious backgrounds. I do a lot of our interfaith work and work with our smaller religious communities as well.
Thank you. Asha?
Good morning. My name is Asha Shipman. I am the director of Hindu Life, Hindu chaplain for Yale University. I mainly work with our Hindu community, but I work with anyone interested in the dharmic religions.
Thank you. Jenny?
Hello, everyone. I'm Jenny Peak. And like us all, wear a couple of hats. So I focus on serving the graduate and professional student community. So do a lot of one-on-one pastoral care with them and do programming with their schools. I also serve as the associate pastor of the University Church in Yale, along with Ian, who's our senior pastor. And I do a lot of programming with LGBTQ students.
Sumi?
Hello, my name is Sumi Loundon Kim, and I'm serving as the Buddhist chaplain. I work with, of course, the Buddhist students and the Buddhist curious students, as well as quite a few SBNR, spiritual but not religious types of students. And we offer meditation and study Buddhist philosophy and have a wonderful, diverse, vibrant community.
Thank you. And finally, last but not least, Omer.
Hello, everyone. My name is Omer Bajwa. I'm the director of Muslim Life here at Yale. I serve as a Muslim chaplain. And while I work primarily with undergraduate students on a day-to-day basis, I'm the chaplain not only to the university, to student, staff, and faculty that identify as Muslim, but I also work at the Yale University Hospital visiting Muslim patients.
Thank you. As I've said to you many times, I feel so blessed to work with you as a team. There's no one luckier than me in terms of this work. But now that we're recording it, it's just on the record for posterity. So I want to start out with that. And I treasure our monthly conversations. And this has been quite a year for us. We're coming up on the 1-year anniversary of taking the chaplaincy remote. And I have just been humbled constantly by your innovation and your spirit in trying to keep things going. And I want to now just sort of start the conversation in terms of what you have drawn on in your own faith tradition to kind of keep you going and help you persevere through this crisis, this pandemic, and all the many moments of chaos, both in our country and locally, that we have encountered in this past year. And I'm just going to open it up and ask that maybe you raise your hand so that I can control the chaos a little bit. Ian.
We're thinking about this because we are coming up on the anniversary, and last year at this time was Holy Week. Was right after Christian Holy Week was right after we went virtual, and so there was this shock of trying to do the biggest holidays in the year and find a message that was appropriate. And what struck me is throughout the year how, in many ways, people have taken religious content much more seriously. I was surprised through Holy Week, through Easter, that people were pulling symbols from the stories and thinking very, very seriously about it. We got a lot of feedback through the summer. There's all the talk of, the kingdom of God coming, and what are we looking forward to? And people were putting their pandemic problems in terms of the symbols of the faith, which I thought was really interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. Others? Maytal?
So I'm Jewish, and for me, Shabbat has been a huge gift during the pandemic, a time to rest and be with my family, and to just stop at the end of the week. And so Shabbat dinner and making challah every Friday with my kids. And I would say the constants of prayers and singing songs and prayers and, you know, Hebrew songs from my childhood, and being able to sing them with my kids who just love them as bedtime songs now, has just been able to be like a rest at the end of the day.
Thank you. Anyone else? Sumi?
So for those of us who have had a regular meditation practice grounded in the Buddhist tradition, I think we found ourselves really touching in a more dedicated, intentional way to sitting quietly. And the lockdown conditions early on really supported this stillness and turning within. And so the meditation practice was very supportive for a lot of us. We also found resources in the Buddhist teachings on suffering, which really legitimates that suffering is a normal experience, and that actually we could, when we lean in or turn into suffering, it can serve as a teacher. And one of the special things about the pandemic is that there was more than enough suffering to go around. So of course that served as a tremendous resource for trying to learn some deeper truths. And I think that a year in, many of the students I've talked to, and certainly for myself, find ourselves in a more tender, more open, more grounded, more connected, and more wise place than we were. And it's really because of the circumstances of this last year.
Others? Jenny?
These are all such good answers. So I'm a Christian Presbyterian, and I think for me, it's been all music. Music has always been my best connector to the sacred and to God. And it's always been that thing, whether that's singing together in church or listening to music, trying to enter a place of prayer on my own, that transports me beyond what I'm thinking about and gives me new language and emotion and feeling for accessing God or feeling connected to other Christians. And I think that's definitely been my saving grace thus far through COVID. I desperately miss singing with other people, though I'm no good at it. There is that, just the vibration of everyone kind of joining in that liturgically I miss, but I still am grateful that music tends to be where I just feel the spirit the strongest. And that's, I think that's been my greatest source of peace thus far.
Thank you. Omer?
Yeah, wonderful answers. So one of the things that came to my mind was I work as a Muslim chaplain here, and I absolutely love and am deeply privileged to do the work that I do with our students and our staff and our community on campus. What I found is that I spend so much time on campus with students praying that I, in fact, don't spend much time praying with my family at home. And what I found is that what the pandemic did is that I actually just got all this quality time with my kids and my wife at home, so we have the daily rhythms of the prayer in the throughout the day, throughout the week. But I've been very grateful to spend this time when they're young, and not only to be able to have in the past given to students and to campus, but now to be able to spend this, which I find very rejuvenating, with family.
Mm-hmm. Asha, I saw your hand too.
The way I think about this is deeply rooted in the Hindu philosophy that everything is cyclical. So we cannot ever experience the highs without the lows. They are both inevitable. And we've been really focusing on, this is the time when we do more interior work. We build our resilience. We build our relationships with ourselves, with others, and with the cosmos. It's a little harder to build relationships.
have a little connectivity problem.
Relationships with others because we cannot be with others, but we found some very interesting, so really focused in on breathing practices because the breath has become less taken for granted, and sustaining the breath to making sure that the body is in earth, and being able to offer that to the Yale community has been deeply satisfying for me, as well as the personal practices.
Thank you, Asha. Having a little trouble with your connection, but you had some great, if you want to try to answer again, if you feel like you have a stronger connection, that would be fine. Okay. Asha has two young children at home that are at school as well. So this is also the nature of what we are in the midst of, which, you know, the hallmark of the Yale chaplaincy is offering radical hospitality. And during regularly operating times, we thrive on that, and we thrive on people dropping in, and for us, you know, offering them ice cream and tea and other snacks. And we haven't been able to do that. We haven't been able to be in our offices or see many people in person at all. And yet I know that we're trying to figure out ways to bring people into the screen world and help them feel welcome. And sometimes we're treated to surprises with that, because there have been people that have accessed our programs that wouldn't ordinarily have been able to for various reasons. And I won't assume that all of you want to answer this, but I would just love to know what kind of gifts or surprises have sort of surfaced in the midst of this very weird way of doing chaplaincy. Asha, and then maybe Omer.
I'm going to try. Hopefully the internet connection stays stable. I do have 3 people downstairs probably watching videos intensively. One of the things that we've noticed is that this lowers the barrier to access. Mm-hmm. So we have alumni, staff, administrators, everybody from the student communities being able to come into the programming. I've been able to collaborate with Hindu chaplains across campuses, which has been incredibly satisfying and has broadened the programming available to the Yale community by quite a lot. My peers are far flung, so it's been professionally very helpful for me to see for my own eyes what their programming has been like. So there's been a huge improvement or greater access to the programming.
Thank you. Omer? Can't hear you.
Sorry about that. So I was going to say, Asha said it so wonderfully. I mean, ditto to everything that she said, which is that I love the way she framed it, lowered the barrier to access. And then just also, you know, like we have such amazing resources at Yale, and to be able to be blessed to share them, right, to people that are alumni that have long left Yale, or to, you know, we have staff. I mean, all of us know people that are in the Yale ecosystem that for any variety of reasons don't have regular access to our events and programming that now are able to. Right. And I think for many of them, it's been, I think, really life-giving.
Yeah. Anyone else? Sumi?
It just comes to me now that one of the qualities I've noticed is that because the conditions have been so difficult and so stressful, it's really stripped away any veneer of pretense, any kind of posing, although we do adjust our hair in the camera. But I've found that students have been more willing to relax into themselves and to be honest, because they know that others are having as much difficulty as they are. And I think that openness and willingness to be vulnerable has been very connecting for people. There's a certain reconnection with reality and willingness to be with oneself and others as they are, that seems a little more heightened now than when in our normal campus life, particularly in person, where there's just maybe a little bit more posing and trying to put on a good appearance.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Ian.
Just along that line, I've been struck by how I'm able to reach out to people in a way that I normally wouldn't, because there's a crisis going on. And normally people are very private and very professional and going about their business. And, you get that sense like, oh, I shouldn't bother these people. But the pandemic has given me a reason to send people an email or reach out to people and to express concern in a way that might not be normal at Yale in normal times, when we presume everyone's going 100 miles an hour and everything is perfect. It's given me the chance to say, how you doing, in a way that has a little more meat to it than it normally would.
Mhm. Yeah, I was thinking about the one-on-ones I've had with people that I did not know. And through Zoom, they've reached out for pastoral care. And I found myself really feeling like we are getting right to the heart of the matter much more quickly. And it's weird because it's over these screens. So we're not physically in the same room. And yet all of that kind of window dressing is gone. The niceties, the this, the that, it's just really getting right into the heart of the conversation. And that's been kind of a surprise. I think I will miss that in some ways. Others? Maytal?
I would just add to what you were saying about the one-on-one pastoral care, that we are getting a lot of people who would feel uncomfortable coming down to our office because it's, in a residential college, in a residential dorm. Professional students, grad students who I never would have met otherwise feel a lot more comfortable over Zoom talking with us. And it also allows people to communicate in all different kinds of forms, whether it is talking over the computer, whether it's hiding themselves, not showing their faces, or chatting. It just allows for people to be vulnerable in different ways.
Yeah, I was thinking, Maytal, specifically with the book groups that you and Jenny ran in the fall, and you're just starting up now. Yeah, I don't know if you want to say a word or two about that, but that was also another surprise.
Yeah, exactly. I think book groups have worked really well for us. One, because people haven't had to walk to our office. And so if people are coming from class, they can automatically pop into Zoom without having to do the travel time. People lose something without having to walk outside, of course, but it's nice that they can access the book groups. Last semester, we read How to Be an Anti-Racist by Ibram Kendi, and this semester I'm doing So You Want to Talk About Race by Gioma Olowo. And it's people I've never met before accessing this, a lot more staff than I would normally get, and students from across the university that, again, physically couldn't have made it to the book clubs in person.
Jenny.
Yeah, I think just to piggyback on that, I think part of why the book groups have worked so well, both the book groups on anti-racism and those conversations, but also book studies we've had in church, and even Asha, I don't know if you're reading class, it's probably a similar experience, but I think people are hungry for ongoing connection, that we've all lost access to like serendipitous bump-ins with people and running into people. Right now, our only human interaction is planned, or like I have to reach out to you, or you're going to reach out to me, or we're just running separately. And like 4-week or 8-week book group creates this opportunity to meet strangers and like go on a journey together through the book and through conversation with one another. And both students and staff, I think, have really wanted that in a way that when we're really busy and driving to work and running into people at Starbucks and all of that, you just don't miss stranger interaction. But book groups have been a nice way to access that and then become more than strangers. So that has been rewarding in ways I wouldn't have anticipated.
I would add too that it's not like you're showing up to a Zoom room not knowing what you're going to talk about. You know exactly what's being presented and what's being talked about. You feel prepared to it. It's not like you're going in scared in some ways.
Mm-hmm. Any other thoughts on this?
just one other thought. I think there's something about being in one another's homes that automatically makes it more intimate in like the messy, awkward ways and the beautiful ways. Was in a meeting last night with a student who had to Zoom from her sister's room, her adult sister, whose shelves were covered with like play horses. And so she had to like confess to all of us how much playing with horses like was a part of her childhood. This is a freshman, so she's, you know, an 18-year-old, but there's just a playfulness and an awkwardness, but also a like beauty in being in one another's spaces in this new way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, again, it strips away the veneer. And if there's laundry over in the corner, well, that's where the laundry is. Which is, I think that that's the other thing is Yale is such a physically intimidating and awesome physical specimen. The architecture alone is, you know, daunting and evokes all kinds of feelings of, you know, I don't know, wonder. And also it's, like I said, it can be a bit intimidating. So to be offering chaplaincy, to be, you know, working at Yale, but not in the sort of confines of these incredible spaces has been freeing in some way, some odd way. It's, yeah, I don't know if anybody wanted to add to that, but it's just struck me. Yeah, Sumi.
That's such a wonderful point. I've encountered students online now with their parents. So I've gotten to meet their parents and see them interacting with their parents. I've seen students with their roommates and gotten a sense of either the chaos of living with roommates, or sometimes, you know, the rooms look very bare. So there's a certain austerity and like a floating in no place at all that feels unsettling, and various small visual and auditory cues that have helped me to see the students in a more three-dimensional way, to have a context for whatever they're saying, like, oh, this is where they are and the space they're in and the people that they're with. And it's given me a more complex view of students. So going forward, when we all come back to campus, I think I'll spend some time just maybe visualizing that person, you know, what's more than just what I see and them on this beautiful campus and in this particular role. It's been really a wonderful enrichment.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Asha, I think I saw you.
Yeah, I was just thinking about two things. One is that a lot of our spaces are locked. So you need an ID card that will allow you in. And that can be really challenging for a lot of the postdocs, the graduate students. And so Zoom, you have your link and you're in. And that's been really helpful. The other thing that I've really enjoyed is seeing everybody's pets and kids. I get my vicarious dose of fur, which is delightful, by seeing everybody's pets coming in. And then it's just really lovely to see the kids.
Yeah, thank you. Anyone else? Ian?
Just one quick thing. Jenny and I have been struck by how devoted the folks at the University Church have been. Probably more than they would have been if we were meeting live in the space. They show up every week and they keep coming. It's not a huge number, but the same people keep coming back, and it's been shocking, you know, because I thought with Zoom fatigue and everything else and all the fatigue of this, that they would just, you know, dribble away. And there are some folks who've never made it, who don't do Zoom, for whom this doesn't work. But I've just been struck by how people keep coming.
Yeah, I noticed that too, in the times that I've been able to go to University Church, and in what is the typical thin time, I'm thinking of late Advent, and the numbers were still there, and I can remember being in person, and you know, it being much smaller, and so that I think is something to think about going forward in terms of, you know, who's tapping into these services, and you know, what seems like initially almost an impossible thing. How do you worship together? How do you pray together? How do you kind of invoke the sacred? And I think all of you have done that in some way that probably even surprises yourself, because it's the unknown. We all were sort of thrown into it and trying to figure it out. And that's been an inspiration for me to just witness across all faith traditions. And I was thinking about you, Omer, last year when Ramadan was started in the spring, and you were thinking, well, what does that even look like? You know, we can't have the iftar community meals, breaking the fast every night. And I'm just remembering the photograph I saw of you and Lisa, your beautiful wife, giving food out, just finding a place where people needed to eat. And that's how you were living into the experience of Ramadan. And I just feel like each one of you found ways to live out your faith, both in a kind of imperfect community form, but also as a something that could inspire all of us. So I just, wanted to note that it was just such a beautiful thing to witness as somebody who thinks about all of these different religious traditions and how is it all going to play out, and to have witnessed that with each of you is just incredible. As we come into a new season of holiness and holy observance, I'd love to know what you're thinking about. We're looking ahead to, as Ian has said, that we're in Lent and we're looking ahead to Holy Week. We have Passover coming. Before that, we have Ramadan just around the corner, and Holy, and it's just, there's a lot of stuff up ahead. And I'm just wondering if any of you want to share some thoughts you have going into all these beautiful holy seasons. Omer.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. I mean, the first thing that comes to my mind and to my heart really is the fact that, our traditions in their own ways talk about redemption and renewal, and it's oftentimes associated with spring. And so, like you said, it's very serendipitous or fortuitous, right? That they're all sort of aligning within weeks of each other. And so I think that with the vaccination, availability, is that, at least in my heart and the people that I'm talking to, are that, there's light at the end of the tunnel. We've been through a long, dark winter, so to speak. Physically, emotionally, spiritually, for many people. There's I think promise and hope soon. So.
Yeah, thank you. Anyone else? Ian?
We've had a lot of fun trying to figure out what to do with things that, at least in Christian liturgy, need to be done in person. And how do you do that over Zoom? And so for Ash Wednesday, we thought, okay, do we do some kind of thing where there's people show up and I'm in full good gear and I put ashes on someone's head with a Q-tip, and we decided, no, we're not gonna try and recreate what we can't do. We're going to do it in a whole different way and try and capture the spirit. And so we had a guide, and Jenny did a guided meditation on a picture, and then we had people actually bring a bowl of dirt and think about, dust you are and to dust you shall return. And now we're trying to think about that for Holy Week. How do we keep the spirit without trying to sort of create a pale imitation of what we would normally do in person?
Thank you. Others? Asha?
Well, thinking about Holy, we've been tossing around ideas of how to bring color into our lives, color representing equality. And since the chaplain's office does a lot of coloring, we were thinking about taking some coloring pages from a very good friend of mine who has been doing coloring books from a dharmic perspective, very intent in terms of reflection as well as the coloring. The one thing that I did, our Holy Week for Ramnami and Hanuman Jayanti came at about the same time as Easter last year, and I was looking at what the temples were doing, because we would normally have our own worship service and we couldn't. And I put out links to the different worship services that were going to be live streamed all over the country to account for the different time zones the students were in. But I'm thinking that this time around, I may have to record worship services using the same program or the same programs that we use in our prayer room, because going to a temple to worship is very different than going to our Hindu prayer room and being in worship. The experience is just not the same. So I've been thinking about overcoming my video shyness and actually recording a puja, and we'll see. I've recruited my parents into some of these things, so I might do that again. We'll see.
That's something to look forward to. Your parents are awesome. Anyone else? Jenny?
I think for me, I was joking with a friend that I've never looked forward to Lent so much. I didn't grow up in a Christian tradition that paid too much attention to Lent. We were more focused on Easter. And to me, what I've come to understand in my faith since then and in practicing it now is that Lent is a time where we tell the truth about suffering and about our participation in furthering suffering, and also the reality of our suffering now. And I think for me, where we are in COVID, I've definitely been in a place of numbness and thinking about, we've been talking a lot as an office about the dueling pandemics of COVID and racism and how all of that is still at play in our life, that I'm finding Lent to be a time for our church community and me personally to remember the value in still facing that and sitting in it and not trying to solve it. And then trusting that the beauty of Easter is that it's illogical life, that the way that Easter comes about and our understanding as Christians of resurrection is that it's surprising and it doesn't make sense. And it's not because of effort, it's because of grace and justice and things that are greater than that. And so yeah, I kind of like Ian said, that this season, right when COVID hit last year, was really meaningful. I can already tell that just trying to create that intentionality again and not trying to be numb to everything again and just kind of trying to be exposed to it has already been fruitful. And I guess everyone will be viewing this after all of this. So I wish we could have questions from alumni who are listening in about how you've experienced these seasons that we're mentioning. Because yeah.
I think they'll be viewing it before. I think it's mid-March.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Maytal.
I have been thinking a lot about the physical season and about spring coming, and just every day listening to more birds, really, really waiting for those first flowers. And I'm feeling in my body that anticipation that spring will come, and knowing that that doesn't mean the pandemic's over, but that there is warmth again, and better hope. I know that I'm a person very driven by the weather, as I know many people are. But in terms of religious season, this will be our second pandemic Passover. I led a Zoom Seder for my family for people on 3 continents. And this year we're back to 1 continent. So that will be good, but trying to think about how to have that family feel that family, like we're sitting at a table together over Zoom again, with people who are more and less comfortable, though want to be more comfortable. My 92-year-old grandmother, for instance. And how do we have a ritual that works and is important for all of them while also sharing this virtual meal? To do it a second time feels both exhausting, but also possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When I think of this time that we've gone through, and in this country alone, over 500,000 people have lost their lives to COVID. And I read somewhere recently, for every life lost, there's at least 9 people in grief. And so you have over 5 million people experiencing that grief. And there have been other kinds of losses in our lives that have broken our hearts. We've lost people to non-COVID incidences, but also a loss of the way we live our lives and how we connect with people. And so there's been a lot that's been heavy that in our hearts, and the conversations we have with people who seek us out for pastoral care have been hard. At the same time, there have been things that have filled my heart that I didn't expect. And I think it's all kind of been rooted in the simplest of things of helping people understand what really matters and what's actually important in life. And so I to close, I just like to kind of have each of you share some of what has filled your heart, what you have, what you've learned and what you've shared with those that you serve as chaplain. Jenny.
I think for me, being forced to embrace the reality of uncertainty has been very difficult, but very rewarding in the sense that nothing is ever certain anyway. And COVID has forced that upon us, that there's little that I can control. And I'm very type A, and like many of our Yale students have been taught to plan and to build and to ascend. And COVID has just been this stark reminder of the fact that life rarely goes as you plan, and that it's more important to be present in the now and attentive to what matters and is nourishing and is life-giving now, and trusting that if you continue making that decision now, it will go with you because you'll keep moving towards that. And I see our students grappling with that, and I see myself grappling with it too. So it's not always welcome, but has also been rewarding.
Thank you. Sumi.
Thank you. Just observing the students over the last year, what I've seen is that with the increased alone time and quiet time, some students have come in touch with unaddressed problems, often from childhood, any kind of issues or dysfunctions that in the normal tumult of being a student can sort of be brushed past. And because they're coming in touch with some of these deeper issues, they're actually finding ways to address them and to heal. And I think it's amazing that there'll be individuals who are healing closer to the age of 20 or 25, rather than postponing that until their 40s or 50s, when people often get blindsided later in life from unaddressed pain. So this to me is a really beautiful, difficult, but beautiful aspect. And I've also seen students reprioritize, as you know, as Jenny mentioned, just rethinking where their career is going. And again, how wonderful that they're doing this in their early 20s, before they're 30 years out into a career they decided that they really didn't like. So I think these realignments will have lasting beneficial effects for them individually and for society as a whole.
Yeah, thank you. Other thoughts? Maytal.
I think going off of what both Sumi and Jenny said, one thing that I think of is our series of wisdom from the elders. And we've brought in a number of elders from different traditions who I really feel like the bottom line of it is all about love, and helping students realize it's all about what you find important and what you love and how to ground yourself in what you love. And it takes off the veneer of sparkly things and really brings it down to its essence. And our elders have been able to both teach that and show that and love on our students, which has been such a blessing. And the other thing that just popped to mind when you asked the question was the laughter that can happen in a pastoral care session about grief and really feeling deep sorrow, but also feeling light and connection and happiness. The laughter that can happen with a group of students who have known each other for years or who are just meeting. Laughter that you don't think would happen over Zoom, but really just comes out in sort of the bizarreness of this whole situation.
Yeah, thank you. Ian?
I was just going to say, it reminds me of, we did a Bible study in the fall on 1 Corinthians, which is a complicated book. But the message of the book in the general comes down to the way you have to run your community is on the basis of love, not anything else, not any of the other distinctions. And it's just, it came through over and over again. And I just thought about that in terms of the context of January 6th and other things that have been going on. What I'm feeling affirmed so often is that message that we have to think about how we run our communities, as our religious communities and our broader communities, on the basis of love, which is tough to do, but I think that this season has brought that home.
Yes. Anyone else? Omer.
Yeah, I know these are wonderful answers. Thank you so much. I'm like continuously impressed by my colleagues, and like they just say so many smart things, and I'm like, what do I have to offer? Thank you all. But one of the things that sort of comes to my mind is that I've sort of reassessed in my own life, and I hope that it's like somewhat beneficial, is that, you know, like we operate in a place that is like honestly obsessed with productivity. Right? Like Jenny alluded to this, like we almost fetishize, sorry to be very blunt, like the idea of productivity, and it's just like this alpha, it's all about the hustle, it's all about the grind. And I think what it's done for me is that, like, you know, we hear a lot about resilience, but it's almost like operationalizing, become more resilient so you can become more productive. And I think that's actually a really like corrosive message. It's like, no, resilience is actually a deep like value and from all of our traditions, but it's about survival, right? It's about survival. And then, like, you know, like what does that do to just enrich your life, not to become more productive, to just become a more, just a better person, I guess. But that's something that I've, you know, read about, thought about, but I guess in my own life, what the pandemic period has done is in relationships that I'm in with people, is that it's really brought it to the forefront. So.
Asha.
Thanks. I echo Omer. Everybody's got such wonderful contributions. I've been thinking about how, yes, the pace of life has been overclocked, not just because of the pandemic, but prior, and how in a lot of the counseling I've done, but also just general conversations I've had with folks in all domains, people have said, you know, I'm working twice as much. I'm feeling like I don't have any time. And isn't this a time when we should be slowing down? Like everything's so uncertain and I can't rely on anything. And yet I find myself at the end of the day feeling exhausted. And I don't know that I've even accomplished anything because it takes 3 times as much time to do anything. And especially I could go back to, what are the practices that allow us to find the minute within the minute? What are the practices that allow us to actually be breathing, not just gasping? What are the practices and what is the outlook we need in order to prioritize that? Like Omer was saying, you know, we actually do have a choice as to how we partition our time and our attention more than we think we do. And I know that it feels like we are so externally driven. And I think that a lot of our practices and our traditions are really saying to us, you can internally manage more than you think is possible. And all of the conversations we've had during these wonderful chaplains chats and the conversations I've had with all of you individually have really spoken to me about that, about how we can reclaim some of our time and attention in a way that is self-nurturing as well as will be more beneficial to the folks who we interact with and the communities we wish to engage with and the people who really rely on us to be steady as best as we can.
I couldn't agree more. And gentle viewer, you've just been treated to Chaplain's Chat, where we get to the heart of the matter. And it's been really wonderful to be with you all this morning. I've been thinking a lot lately about the anonymous 14th century mystic who wrote The Cloud of Unknowing. And the meditation there is all about the preciousness of time. And the lesson that we're learning is that time is precious, use it lovingly. And so we'll close with that. And thank you so, so much to all my beloved colleagues. And if you are interested in any more Impact Series content, please visit the Yale Alumni Association website and channels. And I'll say peace all.